The summer sun beat down on the manicured lawns of Meadowbrook Estates, a neighborhood so meticulously maintained that the slightest imperfection drew whispers from its residents. Every house gleamed with freshly painted shutters, each garden, bed carefully edged, and the HOA's rules were enforced with relentless vigilance. It was in this environment of artificial perfection that the unexpected began to stir. The HOA board had approved a renovation of the aging clubhouse. The once grand building had fallen into disrepair, with water stains creeping across the ceilings and paint peeling in corners where no one had cared to look. The plan was straightforward: restore the floors, upgrade the lighting, and add a small outdoor patio. What no one anticipated was that the walls of the clubhouse held secrets older than the community itself. Work began early on a Monday morning. Construction crews arrived, bringing the scent of wet concrete and fresh timber. Residents watched from their windows, some curious, others wary. Karen Holloway, the self-appointed watchdog of HOA rules, had stationed herself near the clubhouse. Clipboard in hand, eyes scanning every hammer swing, every construction truck that arrived. Rumors had already begun circulating, some claiming the renovation was long overdue, others whispering that the clubhouse had always felt off. It was on the second week of renovation that the discovery occurred. A heavy beam in the floor, previously assumed to be part of a rotted section, gave way under the jackhammer's force. Dust erupted into the air, coughing out a smell of damp earth that had not seen daylight in decades. Beneath the floorboards was a dark cavity, the outline of a doorway carved into stone. The construction foreman, a man with years of experience in old buildings, immediately recognized that this was not a simple crawl space. He gestured for the work to stop, peering into the darkness with a flashlight. The beam of light revealed a narrow stone staircase spiraling downward. The walls were rough, the air heavy with the scent of mildew and rust. It was, unmistakably, a tunnel. News of the discovery traveled faster than the afternoon breeze. By evening, a crowd of residents had gathered, peering down into the hole, their curiosity tangled with fear. Karen was among them, her expression a mix of triumph and concern. She saw an opportunity to assert her authority. A secret tunnel under. The clubhouse was the kind of scandal that could put her in control of the conversation. She documented every angle with her phone, already imagining the HOA meeting where she would unveil her findings. The HOA president, Eleanor Graves, a woman whose polished smile rarely revealed true emotion, attempted to calm the growing crowd. She promised that the tunnel would be inspected, that safety was the priority. But her words barely registered. Eyes were drawn downward to the darkness, where questions swirled like the dust motes in the sunlight. Who had built the tunnel? Why? Had it been hidden? And most importantly, what lay at the other end? That night, the construction crew returned with equipment to stabilize the entrance. Lanterns cast long shadows against the stone walls, revealing carved symbols and markings that hinted at something more than a storage passage. The tunnel seemed to stretch farther than expected, its end vanishing into darkness. Uneasy murmurs spread among the workers. Some whispered about Prohibition-era smuggling, others speculated about old criminal hideouts. None could agree, but everyone agreed that this was no ordinary basement. For the residents, sleep became uneasy. Every rustle of the wind through the trees, every groan of the clubhouse structure sounded amplified, like echoes from the tunnel below. Rumors evolved into theories, and theories into obsession. Social media groups for Meadowbrook Estates exploded with speculation. Memes circulated of Karen peering down into the darkness, captions claiming she had found a portal to the HOA underworld. Even those uninterested in HOA drama found themselves checking the feed, drawn by the allure of a secret hidden for decades. By the third week, the tunnel had become the heartbeat of the community. Construction paused while experts in structural engineering and history were consulted. Archaeologists, surprisingly, took interest, revealing that the stonework resembled architecture from the early 1900s, long before the modern HOA had even existed. The more people learned, the more questions multiplied. Late one evening, as the clubhouse stood empty except for the faint hum of streetlights, a single light flickered from within the tunnel. No one knew how long it had been there or what had caused it. Residents walking their dogs reported hearing faint sounds, almost like whispers coming from beneath the floorboards. Some dismissed it as imagination, the mind conjuring what it could not see. Others, especially those who had grown up with stories of the land before Meadowbrook Estates, shivered with recognition of something ancient, something deliberately concealed. The next HOA meeting was called urgently. Karen, armed with her photos and videos, demanded an immediate investigation. The room was tense, filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. No one spoke aloud of the possibility that the tunnel might lead to something dangerous, but the tension was palpable. Eleanor Graves struggled to maintain order, insisting that safety and discretion were paramount, yet the community's hunger for answers was insatiable. That night, before the meeting could even begin, a new development occurred. The foreman, inspecting the tunnel one last time, discovered a set of stairs leading deeper than previously thought, vanishing into absolute darkness. At the bottom, he glimpsed a faint glimmer, something metallic, arranged in shapes that resembled crates. But not ordinary crates. Symbols were etched into their sides, unfamiliar and unsettling. The news spread like wildfire. The secret tunnel had revealed more than hidden stone and earth. It hinted at something deliberately concealed, something that had survived decades, beneath the clubhouse, untouched and unclaimed. The residents of Meadowbrook Estates were no longer merely curious. They were captivated, anxious, and, for some, terrified. As the chapter of discovery closed, the tunnel remained a dark mystery. Beneath the perfectly trimmed lawns of Meadowbrook Estates, the promise of secrets, of history hidden and perhaps forbidden, lingered in every corner of the community. And though no one had yet ventured to the very end, everyone knew that what lay below would change everything they thought they knew about their peaceful, orderly world. The next chapter would reveal what awaited in the darkness, what truths and dangers had been buried for generations, and how the community would react when the tunnel's secrets were finally brought to light. The morning sun cast long shadows over Meadowbrook Estates, but for the residents the light seemed insignificant compared to the darkness beneath the clubhouse. Rumors from the tunnel spread like wildfire, infecting conversations at morning jogs, poolside chats, and even the quiet corners of local coffee shops. Everyone had an opinion. Some imagined secret treasure, others suspected something far more sinister. The once orderly streets were now buzzing with whispered speculation. Experts had arrived, a team of historians, structural engineers, and archaeologists, all drawn by the tunnel's unusual construction and the mysterious symbols etched into its walls. They worked with caution, measuring, mapping, and documenting every inch. Karen Holloway, as ever, was present at every step, her sharp eyes scrutinizing the process. She photographed every marking, insisted on daily reports, and began circulating her own theories about the tunnel's original purpose. To her, this was not just a curiosity. It was power, a lever she could pull over the entire HOA. By the third day of professional inspection, the tunnel had been revealed to be far longer and more elaborate than anyone imagined. The stonework shifted in style as it descended, some sections meticulously carved, others rough and utilitarian. At intervals, small alcoves appeared, empty except for dust and cobwebs, giving the passage a strange, almost ceremonial rhythm. The air grew cooler the deeper one went, carrying a scent that was hard to place, a mixture of damp stone, rust, and something faintly metallic, like long-forgotten coinage. On the fifth day, the first descent was attempted. It was not a casual exploration. Authorities insisted on safety measures. Harnesses, ropes, and lights were deployed, and only trained personnel were allowed to enter. The residents waited anxiously outside, some pacing, others holding their phones ready to document the first glimpses. Karen insisted on being there, camera in hand, narrating every development for her own social media following. The tension was electric, a blend of fear, fascination, and competitive curiosity. As the team descended, it became clear that the tunnel was not just a passage, but a network. Branching corridors led off in unexpected directions, some blocked by collapsed stone or heavy doors, others continuing into unknown darkness. The walls bore more symbols, intricate carvings that seemed almost ritualistic. Experts debated their meaning. Some suggested they were marks of ownership, others guessed at long-forgotten codes. Every interpretation deepened the mystery, fueling speculation in the community above. It was on the seventh day that the first real discovery was made. A metal door, rusted but intact, was unearthed behind a pile of rubble. The door bore strange etchings, symbols that none of the experts recognized, and a locking mechanism that had survived decades without use. Carefully, the team worked to open it. Dust filled the air as the hinges groaned, revealing a chamber. Inside that seemed almost ceremonial. The room was small but meticulously arranged. Crates lined the walls, each sealed and marked with the same strange symbols. The floor was scattered with papers, brittle with age, and the walls bore remnants of painted images, faded but discernible under the harsh lights of portable lamps. The air was heavy, almost oppressive, as if the tunnel itself resisted intrusion. What shocked everyone was not the room's age, nor the careful arrangement of its contents. It was the nature of what had been stored. The crates contained items that were clearly valuable, not merely in terms of material wealth, but in historical significance. Gold coins, antique jewelry, and manuscripts written in a language that resembled no known alphabet. Alongside these, treasures were documents that suggested clandestine activity, perhaps smuggling or secret societies that had operated long before Meadowbrook Estates existed. News of the discovery leaked almost immediately. Social media exploded with speculation, videos, and theories. Residents flooded the HOA offices with questions, some demanding immediate access, others fearing what the tunnel might reveal about their community's past. Karen, as always, was at the center of the storm, sharing updates, interpreting the symbols, and offering her own dramatic theories. For many, she became the unofficial spokesperson for the tunnel, her presence both reassuring and unnerving. But as the discoveries continued, unease began to creep into the professional assessments. Some crates bore evidence of tampering, scratches along the edges suggesting prior access. Shadows in photographs seemed to move unnaturally, and the deeper corridors of the tunnel remained completely unexplored, a void that swallowed light. The experts warned that the tunnel might be unstable, or worse, that it could hide dangers beyond human understanding. Despite the warnings, curiosity proved irresistible. Karen began lobbying for a deeper exploration, framing it as a civic duty and an opportunity to preserve history. The HOA board, under pressure from residents, reluctantly agreed. Preparations were made for a descent into the deepest reaches of the tunnel, a journey that would take explorers beyond any known point and perhaps into realms of secrecy that had been sealed for decades. It was during one such preparatory inspection that an incident occurred. A faint sound, almost imperceptible, echoed through the stone corridors. The team paused, lights scanning every shadow. The sound repeated, a scraping, a shuffle, as if something was moving just beyond the reach of light. No one could explain it. Equipment recorded vibrations in the walls that could not be traced to any human activity. Some of the residents, watching the live stream, commented on ghosts, while others speculated about hidden tunnels that might branch even further. The tension in Meadowbrook Estates reached a fever pitch. Residents were torn between excitement and fear, unable to resist the pull of the mystery, yet wary of the unknown. Karen, sensing the drama could elevate her influence, positioned herself as the guide to the tunnel's secrets, narrating every discovery, every shadow, every creaking stone. But even she could not ignore the growing sense that the tunnel held something far beyond treasure or history, something that had waited, unseen and patient, for decades. By the end of the second chapter, the tunnel had revealed both wealth and history, but it had also revealed the unknown. Beyond the explored corridors lay darkness deeper than anyone had imagined, and the strange metallic glimmer glimpsed weeks earlier remained unreachable. The question hanging over the community was no longer about the tunnel's existence, but about what it had been hiding all along, and whether Meadowbrook Estates was ready to face it. As night fell, the clubhouse sat quietly above the tunnel, its renovated floors hiding a darkness that had waited silently for generations. The residents, their curiosity inflamed, would have to wait, for the next step into the abyss promised not just revelation but confrontation with a history that might shake the very foundation of their orderly lives. The final chapter would take the community and Karen into the deepest secrets of the tunnel, uncovering truths that would change Meadowbrook Estates forever. The days grew shorter, and shadows stretched across Meadowbrook Estates, as if the community itself sensed the weight of what lay beneath the clubhouse. The tunnel had become the center of every conversation, the invisible pulse that connected every street and backyard. Residents passed each other with tense smiles, their minds preoccupied with questions that had no answers. Even those who once dismissed Karen Holloway's endless commentary found themselves drawn to the story, unable to resist the gravitational pull of the unknown. Preparations for the final descent were meticulous. Engineers reinforced unstable walls, archaeologists cataloged every discovery, and security personnel ensured that only a small, controlled team would venture into the deepest reaches. Karen, ever vigilant, claimed a place at the entrance, documenting the process, narrating updates for her ever-growing online audience. The tension was tangible, an almost electric energy that hovered above the crowd like a storm waiting to strike. Thus, descent began with the measured precision of a military operation. Lights cut through the darkness, illuminating the rough stone walls and narrow corridors. Each step echoed ominously, a reminder that this tunnel had lain untouched for decades, perhaps even a century. The deeper the team went, the heavier the air became, saturated with the smell of earth and age. At last, they reached the final chamber, a room larger than any discovered before. The ceiling arched high, disappearing into shadow, and the walls were lined with symbols, far more intricate than those seen above. The room seemed deliberately constructed to awe, a ceremonial space frozen in time. In the center stood a series of crates, each adorned with the same enigmatic symbols, but these were different. They were heavier, more imposing, and their presence suggested importance beyond mere storage. As the crates were carefully opened, the true magnitude of the discovery became clear. Inside lay not only wealth, but artifacts that told a story of influence, secrecy, and power. Ancient documents described dealings that predated the HOA by generations, implicating families whose descendants now lived in Meadowbrook Estates. Old ledgers revealed transactions, hidden ownership of land, and records of clandestine agreements. These were not merely historical items. They were a roadmap to a hidden past that connected directly to the present community. The metallic glimmer glimpsed weeks before was now fully revealed, a series of gold bars, coins, and finely crafted jewelry, some dating back centuries. Yet the most unnerving discovery was not wealth, but the evidence of surveillance. Tiny carved symbols in the walls, nearly imperceptible, that indicated the tunnel had been monitored. Someone had watched this space, controlled it, and perhaps even dictated its secrets. The realization settled over the team like a suffocating weight. The tunnel was more than a hiding place. It had been a command center, a vault of power carefully guarded across decades. The news traveled fast. Residents gathered outside the clubhouse, their phones raised, faces a mixture of awe and apprehension. Karen's live feed exploded with views, comments, and theories. Social media feeds were ablaze with speculation, secret societies, hidden fortunes, ancient conspiracies. For many, the story had escalated beyond curiosity. It had become an obsession. Yet not everyone was pleased. Some residents began questioning the legality of unearthing such treasures. Legal advisors warned that the artifacts and wealth could belong to the state or to descendants of those who had originally hidden them. Tensions flared within the community. Friends whispered, neighbors argued, and the once peaceful HOA meetings became arenas of conflict. Karen, naturally, positioned herself at the center, claiming moral authority and expertise, broadcasting her version of events and subtly implying that her vigilance had saved the community from ignorance. The deepest shock came when a hidden compartment was discovered behind a false wall. Inside were letters, meticulously preserved, detailing not only the original purpose of the tunnel, but also the names of key figures in Meadowbrook Estate's history. These letters hinted at corruption, backroom deals, and deliberate concealment of wealth and influence. The tunnel had not merely been a repository, it had been a stage for secrets that had shaped the community above. As the revelations unfolded, the psychological impact on the residents became undeniable. Long-trusted neighbors were suddenly suspects. The idyllic streets seemed less secure. Every HOA rule, every whispered comment, every hidden motive was now viewed under the lens of suspicion. The community realized that the perfection they had taken for granted was, in many ways, an illusion built upon secrecy and long-buried power struggles. Karen, true to form, leveraged the chaos. She curated the narrative, framing herself as both guardian and historian, the one who had uncovered the truth and ensured it was documented. Her influence surged. But even she could not fully comprehend the complexity of what had been revealed. The tunnel, the treasures, and the documents were a puzzle with pieces that extended far beyond the immediate community, suggesting a legacy that reached across decades and even centuries. In the end, the tunnel transformed Meadowbrook Estates. The clubhouse renovations were completed, but its floors no longer seemed mundane. Every creak of a board, every shadow in the corner now hinted at hidden depths. Residents adjusted their lives around the knowledge that beneath their perfectly landscaped lawns lay a secret that could not be ignored. The community had been exposed to the extraordinary, and nothing would ever feel ordinary again. The discovery forged new hierarchies. Some residents rallied to preserve the history and ensure that the treasures were cataloged and protected. Others withdrew, wary of the power dynamics now visible beneath the surface. The once quiet streets became a place of careful observation, subtle power plays, and whispered warnings. Karen remained at the forefront, her presence omnipresent, her reputation cemented as the woman who had uncovered the tunnel and brought its secrets into the light. And yet, even as the community adapted, a lingering question persisted. Who had originally built the tunnel? Why had it been so carefully concealed? And who or what had watched over it for decades, ensuring that its secrets remained hidden until the right moment? The answers were as elusive as the shadows that still clung to the deepest corners of the tunnel. By the time the story settled into local lore, the secret tunnel under the HOA Clubhouse had become a legend. It was a reminder that beneath the most orderly of communities, beneath the rules, the landscaping, and the perfectly trimmed hedges, there could lie a past waiting to be unearthed. For Meadowbrook Estates, the tunnel was no longer merely a passage beneath stone. It was a mirror, reflecting the hidden complexities of human ambition, greed, and curiosity, and so the community moved forward, forever changed. But every visitor, every resident, every passerby would carry the memory of the tunnel in the back of their mind, a dark, twisting labyrinth of secrets, wealth, and history, waiting silently beneath the clubhouse, ready to remind them that no matter how perfect the world above appeared, the shadows below held truths that could not be ignored. The secret tunnel had been revealed, its treasures and mysteries exposed, but its story, like the darkness it emerged from, would echo for generations.